Hi there. Welcome to another edition of TokStocks. I'm your host, Keir Reynolds, and today we're lucky enough to have Bryan Slusarchuk, President and CEO for Great Pacific Gold Corp. Trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol GPAC. That's GPAC. Hey, Bryan, how you doing today?
Doing really well, Keir. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for joining us. I know you've been busy, you've been on the road. Lots going on here with Great Pacific Gold. And maybe for some of the viewers that don't know who you are, can you discuss your background a little bit? What you've been up to? How'd you get to where you are today?
Sure, absolutely. I guess over the past 10 years, and I can't believe it's been 10 years, a big focus of mine has been in Papua New Guinea. And that's a place that we've been very active on a number of fronts. Prior to that, I was very involved in financing, structuring, and operating a number of different companies in the mining space, ranging through from exploration to development, production. And before entering the mining space full time, I was in the brokerage or capital markets end of the business, where I primarily focused on financing resource companies operating again in jurisdictions around the world with a focus on exploration, development, and production.
Excellent. I think you and I first met, I don't know, probably 12 or 15 years ago, and you were working in Albania on a mining project that I think was quite successful. Maybe you could list off a couple of the ventures you've been involved with.
Sure. As a group, we primarily try to get involved at an early stage, at an origination stage of an idea. We often try to enter these spaces when they're out of favor and not only talk contrarian, but actually act contrarian. That's how we picked up the asset in Papua New Guinea that I referred to that has become K92 mining. We picked that asset up from Barrick Gold when nobody wanted gold assets. We were able to put $2 million cash up front, the promise of some future payments to Barrick. And with that, we tied up a really remarkable asset. And the market capitalization of that company has touched $2 billion subsequently. And really importantly, I think the project went from a standing start. It was inactive, it was idle. And today there are over 1,600 employees and contractors. So the company not only has had a lot of success financially and in the market, and it's rewarded early shareholders very handsomely, but it's also had huge stakeholder impact in the community. And for me, that is something that I really value and have always valued throughout my career. As a group, we've been involved in different copper situations, gold situations. We were early movers on a cobalt situation that resulted in a micro or nano cap entering into an amalgamation at a $300 million market value. So we've had some very good exits along the way for our group. But when we invest in something, we generally like to take a 5-year plus view, and we're very patient investors and patient operators.
Hey, well, maybe just switching gears, you're also involved, outside of the mining, do some philanthropy, and you're also involved in sports. You're a co-owner of Vancouver's professional basketball team, the Vancouver Bandits. How'd you get involved in that?
I love basketball, and I've been involved at a community level in basketball for quite some time. And 6 years ago, there was a professional league started up in Canada, the CEBL, and I saw the growth of this league. I was a season ticket holder. I was a sponsor. I worked with the team on some community initiatives. and over time just grew to love not only the team, the organization, and what they were doing in the community, but the league itself. And this league has absolutely flourished. There are 10 teams across Canada. There are some incredible ownership groups across Canada. There were games last year, for example, in Winnipeg, where 10,000, 11,000 people were out watching professional basketball. Winnipeg's a big rival of ours. But this league is growing by leaps and bounds. And within the league, you have former NBA players, future NBA players, Division I players from the best colleges in the United States and Canada. And it was just a passion project initially. I met through the different evolution of the business, a great partner. I went in 50-50 with this partner. We both share a lot of the same values in terms of doing good through sport. And look, it's a great business. The league is exploding in terms of viewership. We've got a TSN television deal. There are big gaming deals. So I love the league. I love the Vancouver organization within the league. And we're ready to start our 6th season here in May. The home opener is actually on May 26th against the Montreal Alliance. And it's going to be a sellout crowd, a barn burner. We have a couple of guys with NBA experience that are going to be on the court, and some guys that I think in the near future will be NBA players. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Hey, that's pretty neat to do outside. I know you work real hard on the corporate side. Nice to know you've got a bit of an outlet for a bit of fun in a different venture. The mining and resource sector up until recently has been kind of a tough place to be. Here it seems like it's already, it's sort of just turned around here rather quickly. You blink and it's sort of improved. But I know you as being a bit of a go-to for checks, being a bit of a check writer. Is that the case? Have you been hit up pretty often looking for private placement money and stuff like that?
Yes, absolutely. And I've been a real happy participant, in a number of ventures outside of our core group over the past few years. And I think these markets, and they've been negative for some time in the precious metal space, these markets present opportunity, and you can either run away from the sector and try to come back when it's good again, or you can really dig in, look for value, look for opportunity in some of these beaten up names with great projects. And I've been really fortunate. I've been introduced to some situations that I thought represented real value and real growth potential. So I've been a significant check writer in the space over the last few years and continue to do so, and taking part in private placements all of the time. And I think that there are some great young entrepreneurs in the sector that have great teams around them, great projects, and just need capital to advance things. And there is that capital around. However, it's been quite selective over the past few years. If there's a private placement or a financing of some sort that goes up, generally, it's not too difficult to guess who the institutional investors are, who the brokers are behind the situation, etc. It's a small group. What I finally see happening just over the past few weeks, in fact, is that group of investors and speculators in the space is broadening out a bit. I think you've got some inflows starting to the precious metals funds. So those funds are starting to deploy a bit more capital. And at the same time, you have these very underweight generalists just starting to dip their toe into the sector. And remember, on a global basis, this sector is small. And ultimately, what ends up happening, and we're a long way from it, is that as you start to see generalist fund flows into the sector, you see initially a trickle, and then that builds up, and eventually it's a whole lot of capital trying to get deployed in a space that's quite small. And that is just a great setup for some parabolic moves in the quality names on the precious metals front, and also, of course, on the base metals.
So a question from a subscriber. I asked just before we got on if there were any last minute sort of questions. Um, are there a couple of resource entrepreneurs or junior mining CEOs that you're backing and that you might want to give a shout out to or mention?
Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, most of our focus in terms of our time, our energy, and our capital is within our own group. And we've got some great companies. I think, for example, K92 Mining, which I co founded, former president of. K92 is just an exceptional value here because the growth profile, the organic growth profile in terms of production, resource base, exploration is phenomenal. It's high grade, high margin. People that know me know that I'm a huge fan of the CEO of that company, John Lewins, who's done a spectacular job there. I think a real up and comer in this space, although that's a bit of a misnomer because he's just so experienced, is the president of K92, Dave Medelick. Dave is an engineer. He's had banking experience in the space, analyst experience in the space. We actually first came across him with K92 when he was covering the stock for Macquarie. Brilliant guy, and I think he's going to be a household name over the next several years in the sector. I've recently invested in Abitibi, run by John DeLuce, a big fan of John. I think that anything that Sean Pimkin does is going to be good. He's just a tireless worker, smart guy, has surrounded himself with some great people. He's doing a great job. And then I also try to follow groups into things. If I see Brian Braga doing something, whether it's inside the mining sector or outside, I try to get myself involved as a shareholder there and want to make sure that I own things that he owns. I think he's a brilliant guy and has really been a first mover in so many big macro trends over the last 10 years. I look to see what guys like Tommy are doing and that crowd. And of course, things that guys like Frank Juster and Ross Beatty are doing. When I look at this deal, Eris Gold, out of that Juster camp, I think it's just spectacular value. So there are a lot of people I follow, but we keep quite focused on our own stuff internally because we've got just some very compelling situations at the moment.
Excellent. Well, why don't we? Thanks for mentioning that and answering that question. I'm sure Andrew will be excited to hear your response. Why don't we turn our attention back to your stuff here? Why don't we talk Great Pacific Gold? Maybe you can give a bit of an overview on the company, like where is its projects, where the projects are sort of focused, and then we can kind of dive a little bit more into detail into that. Could you give us a brief overview?
Sure. Great Pacific Gold, we're well financed. We've got a great team behind it, and we've got a big focus right now in Papua New Guinea. And Papua New Guinea, it's a place close to my heart. As I mentioned, I first went to Papua New Guinea 10 years ago when I was fortunate to be a co-founder, former president of K92. That's really blossomed over the last several years. And with Great Pacific Gold, we've got an opportunity in Papua New Guinea that I think is really unique. We have in-house technical expertise, experience in the country. Papua New Guinea in the mining space is known as the land of giants for good reason. There are just multiple tier one world-class deposits in Papua New Guinea, and we know the space and we're a very early mover there. Since we've entered the country, you've seen big changes in PNG. Recently, over the past year, Newmont, the world's largest gold mining company, has entered PNG, has made a big bet on PNG. You've seen Tom Palmer, the CEO of Newmont, visit PNG multiple times now. He was at the PNG Resource Conference in Sydney, outside of those visits to Papua New Guinea itself. And I think that the fact that you've got the world's largest gold mining company there now, the second largest gold company in the world there now, you've got this example with K92 where you can go from discovery through development, production, and have some real success along the way, it's really put Papua New Guinea on the map. And within Great Pacific Gold, we've been able to acquire a real commanding land position in PNG. There are 3 separate projects. One is Kesar Creek, and that's contiguous with K92. It's in that general K92 camp, just to the northwest of K92. And it's the earliest stage of our 3 projects, but it's exciting because the analogy in terms of geology is pretty simple. It's that K92 style of exploration target. You've got the high-grade epithermal veins, gold, copper, and then you've got the big porphyry-type targets. So that's Kesar Creek. To the southeast of K92, we've got the Arrow project. Again, big potential at Arrow in terms of porphyry-style mineralization, epithermal veins, intrusion-type targets. Arrow has had drilling in the past, but the average depth at Arrow of past drilling was less than 30 meters. In fact, it was 27 meters historically. So figuratively and literally, the Arrow has only had the surface scratched. We also have a project, a third project named Wild Dog. And this is a project that had 1,200 drill holes completed in the past. Again, very shallow, largely supportive of a small, high-grade open pit mining operation. So this is a past producer. But at this project, at the Wild Dog project, we have this low-hanging fruit, and that's the high-grade gold mineralizing system at surface. But we've also seen evidence of porphyry mineralization in the open pit itself. And there are some amazing targets there in terms of that porphyry mineralization that indicate the potential for real size, real scope. And we know the grade is there based on past work. So we're really excited about Papua New Guinea. And the team involved in Great Pacific is important to note. We just recently had Dr. Chris Muller join our Great Pacific board. Chris is the Executive Vice President of Exploration for K92 mining. And prior to K92, Chris was in PNG, very involved at Wafi Golpu, which many people will know is one of the highest grade undeveloped porphyry projects on the planet. John Lewins, who is the CEO of K92, is an advisor to Great Pacific Gold. I've had a background in Papua New Guinea over the last 10 years. So we've got the right team, and not only the right team in terms of management and board, but we also have that infrastructure in country with the right contractors, accountants, lawyers, that whole infrastructure that can't be recreated overnight. But because team members have been there over the last decade, we've just got a great network of people as we go full steam ahead in Papua New Guinea.
And so you've got 3 projects, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a process for being able to obtain like your exploration licenses, and you've received, I think, 2 out of the 3, if I'm not mistaken, for your 3 projects. Is that correct?
Sure. So when we acquired this land package, and again, it's a big commanding land package in PNG among these 3 projects, there were a variety of exploration license applications, or ELAs, as well as exploration licenses. We've now converted all of the ELAs into ELs. We have 1 remaining, and that's on the Wild Dog project. So as of this moment, 100% of Kesar is covered with ELs, 100% of Arrow is covered with ELs. We've got 1 license at Wild Dog, and we're waiting on the second ELA there to convert to an EL. And after that happens, all 3 projects will be 100% covered. So right now at Kesar, we've just wrapped up a big blanket soil geochem of the property, and we're awaiting results from that. So with a little bit of luck here over the next couple of weeks, we'll have some great geochem targets with coincident, amazing geology right next door to K92. At Arrow, we've been doing some drill pad construction, road rehabilitation. We anticipate drilling at Arrow to commence over the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then at Wild Dog, we've planned out our exploration efforts. We've put together a big work program. We've engaged with the community and various contractors, et cetera. So we're ready to go pending the conversion of that last ELA to an EL. So it's been very busy on multiple fronts in Papua New Guinea and very drill centric going forward.
And in terms of your Arrow project, it did see some past exploration, and there's something called the Mount Victor prospect. Is that sort of where you're kind of focusing some of your, I guess, drill pad work and stuff like that at the Arrow project?
Yes, absolutely. So there are a whole host of targets throughout that Arrow project, including around Mount Victor. And initially, what we'll be doing is we'll be following up on the past shallow holes. And we've got a lot of prospecting data via the historic drilling to guide our initial drill efforts. And like I say, there were a lot of holes drilled at Arrow. There were more than 100 holes drilled there, but you had less than the amount of total meterage than you would expect. And this is because the average depth of those historic holes was right around 27 meters. So the first
Right.
pass of drilling that's being designed will target this area, but with slightly deeper holes than were drilled in the past. So we'll be pushing these holes to a normalized sort of depth for the area of 100 to 150 meters. And that will be done with a reverse circulation program. And then we'll move into the core drilling or the diamond drilling soon after that. So we've got a company called QED as our drill contractor there. This was a contractor we used right out of the gate at K92 in the early days. So we have a long relationship with them. And the nice thing about all of the historic work there is, one, it's plentiful and it serves as a good prospecting guide. But really, this whole area has just never been looked at depth. So there's also really significant opportunity.
Hey, excellent. Thanks for an overview on that. Now, I don't really want to change gears too much because I'm a big fan of the PNG story, but you do have projects also in Australia, and you did make what looks like a really exciting discovery, I think, late last year. Could you explain a little bit on your Australian projects?
Sure, absolutely. And we're excited about Australia. It's a really interesting story here because if we were here talking 4 or 5 months ago, it would be all about PNG. That's where our focus has really been. But over the last few years, we've had these assets in Australia and we've been advancing them on the ground through some great work led by Rex Motton, our COO, and his technical team. And the way that I would describe it is over the past few years, we've advanced these projects. We've had a lot of smoke. We haven't had the big hit that would excite the market. And then all of a sudden, late in 2023, on what was the only hole being drilled at a prospect called Comet, and this was a prospect that Rex believed had the best chance within our land package at a Fosterville-like discovery. And for those of you out there that don't know about Fosterville, for quite some time, Fosterville was the world's highest grade, the world's highest margin gold operation. And it's just a spectacular deposit that we're in Great Pacific just south of. So Rex had mapped where a series of western dipping faults intersect the anticline. It was the right structural setting. That was at about 95 meters from surface. And he wanted to drill this last hole of 2023. It may have been our last hole drilled on this particular project if it had not hit. it ended up hitting. It was a spectacular intercept, 8 meters at 106 grams per ton gold, including 5 meters at 166 grams per ton gold. Just a spectacular hit. I think one of the highest grade discovery holes in the world last year. And all of a sudden, that reignited a bunch of interest in our Victorian assets, notably this Comet discovery. So since that high-grade discovery, we've moved a diamond drill rig in. We completed the first few holes of diamond drilling. We already have put out some results, which included a cut at approximately 4 meters at 25 grams per ton. And we're waiting on some additional assays there, and then we'll get the diamond drill started up again. We think that we'll be drilling with that diamond drill again over the next 10 days. And it's very exciting. And this is the same age of rock as Fosterville, same mineralogy as Fosterville, same geology as Fosterville. We know that this system has produced exceptionally high grades, as indicated in our bonanza hit within the discovery hole. It's early days. We've got a lot to figure out there. This diamond drill will help do that. And of course, after you make a discovery with an RC rig, you get in and drill in fairly close proximity to it with a diamond drill so you can start to figure out structure, orientation, etc. And that's the process right now. So with a little bit of luck, we'll have more bonanza type hits sometime down the road. We'll be able to start to figure out this system. We know it's very high grade. In the second hole, the second diamond hole that we drilled, we encountered stacked zones of mineralization. So we see there's also indication of some size potential. And again, that is in line with the Fosterville analogy. So it's a very, very exciting second front on what we have going at GPAC. So PNG has been a big focus. It's a place we've done really well over the last 10 years. We have a lot of experience. But we also now have an additional exceptionally high-grade discovery in Victoria, Australia. It's very early days, but we'll be following up on that. And Rex is a guy that, as I mentioned, our COO, he's a geologist. He's worked all over the world. But Rex grew up in this Victoria area. He spent his teenage years prospecting around the district. A brilliant geologist, and Rex really believes we're onto something special at Comet. Only time will tell. It's a big bonus to whatever happens in PNG, right. But it can be a very big bonus given, again, what that analogy is geologically, being, of course, the Fosterville mine.
And the Fosterville mine, what type of geological sort of setting is it? Is it epithermal as well?
So when we made the discovery at Comet, and you look at all of those hallmarks of Fosterville, and you say, where do we check the box with Fosterville? And like I mentioned, same mineralogy, same geology, same age of rock, etc. The most important thing was this structural setting where these western dipping faults intersect the anticline. That structural setting was very important. We also saw within that initial hit, which was originally reported as 5 meters and then was reported as 8 as we got some more assays in, is that even in that halo, outside of that intense core of mineralization, you see grade. And this indicates this trap, this system, has propensity to have real size. It was definitely not a nuggety type hit. You saw very good grade distribution throughout the hole. In fact, there were a couple of meters that graded around 400 grams per ton. So you saw good grade distribution. You also saw these big arsenopyrite clasts, which is similar to what you see at Fosterville. You see a lot of the quartz veining. So everything to this point looks a lot like Fosterville. We've got the bonanza grade, these arsenopyrite clasts, the structural setting, same underlying geology, mineralogy. But what I would caution people here is it's early days. And it took them at Fosterville, obviously, several years to figure things out. We conducted great science, and all hats are off to Rex and his team. But we also got quite lucky in that we got vectored in on that extremely high grade early on the discovery hole. The discovery hole didn't grade 2 or 3 or 4 grams. We had 100-gram hit on the discovery hole. So in terms of early days, yes, it is. But even though we're still figuring things out structurally, and in terms of which way this moves, et cetera, even though it's early days, we've got a big head start on where you would likely expect we are in terms of that learning process. So over the next few months, we should have a lot of news out of Comet for sure.
And then in terms of, I guess you've kind of tackled it the right way. Your original discovery was an RC, and then you quickly followed up with the core rig with the diamond drill so you can actually see a bit more of the structure rather than just trying to interpret it through chips. Would that be a correct way of describing that?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's of course standard practice, because the RC rig can tell you a lot. It can tell you about grade, but it can't give you all of the indications that you would see if you're actually looking at core. So, as is industry standard, we've now followed up that RC discovery with diamond drilling. And like I say, we'll have a diamond drill turning again there, we anticipate, over the next 10 days.
Hey, excellent. Thanks for answering some questions on that, and congrats on the last whole sort of wonder. What a great name for it, Comet. Why don't we turn our attention now to the cap table a little bit, if you wouldn't mind? What's your cap table sort of look like?
Sure. So we've got approximately 86 million shares issued. When you look at everything on a fully diluted basis, you're at approximately 100 million shares. And everybody can find all of this information at greatpacificgoldcorp.com. There's approximately 10 million in cash on hand. So for a company with a relatively low share count versus the peer group, we are very well financed. We're in good shape to execute in Papua New Guinea and in Australia, with Papua New Guinea, of course, being the big focus. We have, like I say, one drill rig about to turn in Australia, again, following up on the discovery and the initial positive diamond drilling. We've got assays pending right now that we're quite hopeful on. And we're just about to start drilling in Papua New Guinea. So with this cap table, 85, 86 million shares out, 100 fully diluted, but 10 million in cash, we've got a lot of runway. And we've got some very good institutional shareholders and shareholders that have been with us a long time, shareholders that know Papua New Guinea well because of their experience with us over the last 10 years with K92. They're shareholders that can grow with us. Normally, they would look at much larger cap names, but here's a chance for these individuals and these institutions to invest alongside a $100 million cap company, which is small for many of them, but they know that we've got that real torque potential. And we've utilized over the past few years financing windows to finance the company in a way that is the least dilutive as possible for shareholders. And because of that, we've got a very strong position as we embark on these big exploration efforts in PNG and continue along in Australia.
What percentage of the company is owned by insiders?
Insiders and employees would be around 10%. We've invested and we've been in the mix all along the way from inception through to today. We've got a very strong group of institutions on the registry, nobody at 10% plus. The only shareholders we've announced outside of the insiders, obviously, were Ross Beatty and Eric Sprott. That was in early days on the back of Australia prior to Papua New Guinea, and I don't speak for either of them, so I'm not sure what they own or don't own, but I think it's indicative the quality of projects in Australia when you are able to announce a Ross Beatty and an Eric Sprott as investors in the company. We've got a lot of precious metal specific investors, the precious metals funds in Toronto, in London, UK, etc., in the mix on this. And now, as we really ramp up on site in PNG and we continue at the high grade comet discovery, I think we'll start to add some more generalists. But right now, our registry is heavy to geologists, engineers, precious metals funds, institutional players that are in the space. And it's what I would call quite smart money invested at the moment at this micro cap level. And we hope that they all grow with us as we continue to execute and hopefully really grow our market cap over the next several months.
Are you fully funded for 2024?
Yes, we're fully funded for 2024. We've actually got a couple of years of runway in terms of budget versus our cash position. We hope to expand the work program that we've currently got budgeted and laid out. And you expand programs when you have success on the ground. So I think there's potential to, of course, expand at Comet, where we've made the recent high-grade discovery, but also expand in PNG. But based on the current budget, we've got a couple of years of runway.
Excellent. Well, why don't we sort of wrap up here? Thanks for giving us a good overview. Really appreciate your time. What's a typical day look like for you?
Well,
is there a typical day?
When I'm home in Canada, which isn't too often, most of the conversations are capital market centric. Keeping the different sales desks, the different bankers, the different retail brokers updated as to how we're progressing on site. I've been on the road a lot lately. I've been fortunate to be in Papua New Guinea a fair bit in the past recent while, and I love being in PNG. It's, like I say, a place close to my heart and a place we've had a lot of success for shareholders and also for communities. So I've been in Papua New Guinea a fair bit. I've had a couple of recent trips to Australia. So my typical day seems to be moving to or from the airport. But when I'm in Canada, I get a chance to get to Toronto, see the sales desks, see the various brokers, keep in constant contact with our broker network that's been very supportive of us on this and who were there on early days on K92 and through the growth there. So it's a whole lot of market-facing work when I'm in country, more operationally focused when I'm overseas. But with that being said, we have some amazing people in the mix who are really driving operations. Rex Motton, our COO, is based in Victoria. He lives just down the road from the Fosterville mine. He arguably knows Victoria as well as any geologist out there. We've got a great Papua New Guinean country manager based in Papua New Guinea, and we have a lot of infrastructure in Papua New Guinea, as you can imagine.
Well, excellent. I really appreciate your time, Bryan. So thank you for giving us a rundown. Hopefully you'll come back here in the next sort of quarter and kind of update us on everything that's been going on. It's a story we'd like to follow for some time. And I'm happy to say I'm a shareholder.
Great. Thanks for your time, Kier. And there's a lot happening. I think we're really catalyst rich, not only over the next few months or several months, but over the next few weeks. So I think it's definitely a good time to be chatting. And I really appreciate your time on this.